chances are you're either A, someone who's already received an autism diagnosis as an adult, or B, someone who thinks they probably are on the spectrum and is currently scouring the internet for every autistic resource ever created. I know because I've been there. Today I'm sharing with you 16 characteristics of females on the autism spectrum that are less commonly talked about. These characteristics are based on my own experience as well as those of other autistic adults that I've been spending time with and learning from, and I really feel that exploring these characteristics will help you feel more seen as someone on the autism spectrum. Stay tuned until the end of the video. I'm going to be sharing one of my all-time favorite products for helping to manage sensory overwhelm, and I cannot recommend it enough. So if you're ready, let's jump in and explore more of what it means to be an autistic female. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I am Taylor with Mom on the Spectrum, and I'm so glad you're here. I started my channel because I am a late diagnosed autistic female, and I could not find enough resources that really helped provide me with the information I was looking for during the diagnostic process. And now that I have my official diagnosis, which I received at age 31, I continue looking for more resources and support to help connect me to other people like me in the autistic community. As someone on the spectrum, I feel that my experiences are very unique, and oftentimes these experiences can be overlooked or labeled as something other than autism. That's part of why I created this channel. I wanted to help clear up some confusion as to how autism is diagnosed in females. It can present in so many different ways. That's part of what we're going to be talking about today. So you can help me spread this message of what it actually looks like to be an autistic adult, an autistic female in 2022, just by liking this video if you find it helpful, commenting below. I think you'll find a lot of great discussion and other like-minded people here to support you, and making sure that you've subscribed to this channel. Those three things go a long way in helping these videos reach people like you and me at just the right time. If you've been on the channel for a while, you might remember that I did a video on female autistic characteristics, but it was a while ago, and it was back when I was calling myself the atypical Aspie, so a lot of things have changed around here. I'm really excited to announce that as of now, the channel is receiving about 10.5 thousand views a month. Cannot believe it. Thank you so much for the support and encouragement. And I continue to receive countless stories from you out there detailing your experiences as someone on the spectrum, and I can't thank you enough for sharing these things with me. I do my very best to read and respond to every comment, every email, and I love learning more about the autistic community. Today's video is going to be an extension of what that first video talked about, so if you're interested after this video of delving into even more female autistic characteristics, that's a mouthful. Be sure to check out the description for a link to the first video I did on this subject if you're interested in learning more. A few quick disclaimers before we begin. One, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. This list of characteristics is by no means a diagnostic tool to let you know if you are on the spectrum, but if you find yourself relating to several or all of these characteristics, it might be worth looking into a diagnosis, or at least exploring the idea further. You can also check the description for more resources aimed at helping you navigate the autistic diagnostic process. I'm just using all kinds of big words today. I also wanted to point out, and this point has been brought up by several of you on the channel, on the community tab, which is another great area to check out on this channel for great discussion. Using the term female can be kind of isolating. There are many people on the spectrum who might not identify as female or male. The perspective that I present today is an autistic female. That's why I chose to use this wording. Also because I feel like there is a high need for females specifically to be able to better understand themselves due to resources, literature, studies that are based solely on how autism presents in males. I understand that's also a need for transgender and non-binary people on the spectrum. I'm doing my best to learn more about those needs, but because I am an autistic female, that's the perspective that I'm coming from today. I wanted to let you know today that no matter where you fall on the gender spectrum, you may find that these characteristics are applicable to you. So just keep that in mind as we go through this list today. Also, I do want to learn more about how to better communicate regarding gender. So if you find any wording that I've used in this video to be something that is not helpful, happy to hear that in the comments. Just know my goal is to be inclusive of everyone, and I'm doing the best I can to use the right wording to support that. With all that said, let's jump into our list. So number one, as a female on the spectrum, you might find that you have increased difficulty navigating romantic relationships. Maybe this has led to you finding yourself in problematic situations. Maybe you have found yourself as, unfortunately, someone who has experienced sexual abuse or trauma. This is not uncommon in the autistic community. There's one study that has shown that people on the spectrum are up to 3 times more likely to experience sexual abuse than people who are not on the spectrum. I will post a link to that study in the description if you're interested in more information on that. But I have heard from many of you on the channel that you've been through experiences like this, which I think goes hand in hand with that added difficulty in navigating romantic relationships. Things might not come as easily to us. We might not understand when someone is flirting. We might not understand when someone says something that might mean something different than it actually does because we're very literal. So as someone on the spectrum, you may have found that romantic relationships have just been totally confusing to you. You may have found in grade school that your peers were navigating these relationships differently and you just felt kind of like a fish out of water. These are very normal experiences for females on the spectrum. Number 2, this is the thing that has come up more than anything whenever I asked for y'all to share your experiences with me. Internalized anxiety from constantly masking. So crash course on masking. Masking is pretending to be something that you're not. Put very simply. Women have particularly problematic pressure placed on them by society in terms of who we're expected to care for, what we're expected to put on hold in order to pursue things that we want or need. The list goes on, and this video is not to delve into that, even though I definitely could. But the fact that that pressure exists, I feel like, is one of the reasons that women may feel like they have to mask more than men do. Obviously, I'm not a man, so I can't speak from that perspective, but I do know that women many times voice that they feel they have to mask constantly. This may mean smiling when we don't want to. This may mean pretending to be interested in something that we're not really interested in. It could be giving someone a hug when we don't want to give that person a hug. Kind of goes along the lines of fake it till you make it. So as the female on the spectrum, you might feel constantly burned out from trying to be somebody but not even understanding who you're trying to be, because that constantly changes based on the people that you're around. Someone on the channel actually wrote something that I wanted to share. This is from Hannah Hunt. She said, "It's like people either expect autistic women to be the 4-year-old boy who's obsessed with trains or completely neurotypical." And I thought that was a really good perspective, because males on the spectrum, I feel like they might be able to get away with a little bit more in terms of different types of social behaviors, but women seem to be taught a more rigid pattern of behaviors that are acceptable by society. And it can be really hard as an autistic person to understand how to fit that mold, and extremely exhausting to find ourselves in that situation over and over again. The third point goes along with this one. That is, you may feel like you're suppressing true honesty in order to make other people more comfortable. This kind of goes along with masking, but a lot of times autistic people can be a little bit more blunt. We are very literal, and many times we feel like saying exactly what we mean is the best way to say something. If you're on the spectrum, you may have noticed how hard it is to figure out what's actually appropriate to share with the person that we're talking to. It's almost like this song and dance of figuring out what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, but the thing that falls behind in all of this is what we actually think or feel or believe or want to communicate. So you may feel that as a female on the spectrum, you've had to soften your honest opinions in order to appease the needs of others and to make them feel more comfortable in the situation. Number 4 definitely also goes along with masking, and that is copy and paste behaviors. This was the first sign that I remember hearing and thinking, oh my gosh, I do that. I was talking with someone about autism, and they mentioned that it wasn't normal to have copy and paste behaviors. And I remember thinking, but it is normal. And that's when things started first clicking into place for me. So as an autistic female, you might find that in social situations, you are constantly observing what other people are doing, and you might change your body language to mirror them. You might change your facial expressions to mirror them. You might change your tone of voice or the types of vocabulary you're using to mirror them. It comes from a different place. It's not necessarily social anxiety. It's more of ineptitude or an inability to understand how to properly participate in the communication going on. And now, even as I say that, I'm like, who gets to define properly? So clearly there's some more unpacking we have to do there. But copy and paste behaviors are almost a survival tactic for navigating the world of non-autistic communication. Number 5, this is something that I ran into my entire life from a very young age, being labeled either sensitive or gifted, or both. I haven't seen males on the spectrum deal with this issue as much. It doesn't mean that they don't, but many times autistic females, if they're a little bit different socially or don't really fit the mold, it can be passed off as them being sensitive, right? They're shy, or they're just gifted and they're really smart and so they're a little bit different. But the reality is, if you dig deeper than that, sensitive and gifted are just two terms that kind of cover up the struggles that are going on underneath the surface. Number 6, as an autistic female, you may feel especially depleted after social events or large gatherings. You may also find yourself constantly looking for ways to get out of those events. I never really understood why people wanted to go to these very large events, but I understood that it was important, so I found myself going to them and then would always need a lot of recovery time afterwards. I didn't necessarily register that at the time, but I remember just being kind of fascinated by the idea that people wanted to get together in these large groups and hang out and have small talk for hours, because that sounds like a literal nightmare. So if you find yourself in these large situations, you might find that you need recovery time afterwards, that you feel really depleted. You might almost feel a sense of depression or lethargy, an inability to stick to your normal routine. These are all normal autistic responses to large gatherings and social events. Number 7, as an autistic female, you might find that you have secret stims. So stimming is something that you do physically with your body in order to move energy outward. So as someone on the spectrum, we deal with a lot of sensory overwhelm, and that can create this feeling of a lot of physical energy that needs to leave the body. The stereotypical autistic stims of flapping your hands or maybe hitting something, those things tend to be more common in autistic males, not all of the time, but many times autistic females, if they have that type of behavior, that seems more socially problematic. So autistic females will revert, maybe without even knowing it, like I did, to something way less noticeable, like hair twirling. I did this all the time in school. Hair twirling or picking at my nails, biting my lip, which is something that I'm still trying not to do because I do it all the time and it ends up kind of hurting. So we find these little ways to stim that other people don't notice. I also used to blink a lot as a stim when I was younger. Stims can change over time, that's totally normal. But let me know if you're picking up for the first time maybe on some secret stims that you've had that you didn't know were stims. I'd be curious to hear what those are. Number 8, this is me for sure. As an autistic female, I feel like I am much more comfortable and much truer to myself in writing rather than in person. That's not true 100% of the time, but more often than not, I would rather communicate with you in writing rather than having a conversation in person. In person, what I'm thinking about when I'm talking to you is, where should my eyes be? What should my body language be doing? Is this an appropriate facial expression? And then trying to hold what you're saying in my head while trying to formulate an idea and figure out the right time to jump in and share it. All of those things are so overwhelming. And now in a way they are automatic, but it still requires so much brain power to do that it really depletes me. Whenever I get to write out what I want to communicate, I am truer to myself. I'm able to take out all of that extra processing and really focus on what it is I actually want to say. There have been many times where I've written something and thought, wow, that's really truer to who I feel I am than how I actually interacted in person with them. Which is kind of interesting because I know there's been, this is a little different topic, but I know there's been some shade thrown at online communication, Facebook comments, that kind of stuff, because people will just say anything and they need accountability. But for me, I feel like I don't type or share anything unless I truly mean it. And I have run into that a lot in the autistic community, that we won't put something in writing unless we feel it's honest and true. And I feel like written communication is extremely helpful for me. So just an interesting tidbit there in relation to the very complicated world of social media. Number 9, you may find as an autistic female, and especially if you're an autistic person with lower support needs, you may discover that you tend to find yourself in leadership positions. This might be subconsciously because you want to participate without being part of the herd. In a leadership role, you know more clearly what your expectations are, the routines that you should follow, the rules that you should be guided by. So for me in particular, and other females that I've heard from on the spectrum, taking a leadership position, it doesn't feel scary most of the time because we know more of what's expected, and we tend to have more one-on-one communication rather than small group communication. Small group communication is hard, y'all. It's just hard. 10, this is an important one that might be hard to hear. As an autistic female, you might be really good at gaslighting yourself. This is something I want us all to listen to. It's important. If you don't know what gaslighting is, it's being convinced that something that you believe is true is not true. As an autistic female, there are many experiences that we have that don't measure up to what our peers are experiencing. So you might find yourself saying, well, she can handle it, so I just need to work harder. She did this, so I can do it too. She doesn't need a break, so I shouldn't need a break. So we experience all of these things internally where our body is saying, hey, slow down. Hey, listen to me. Hey, this is way harder than I thought it would be. And instead of listening to those voices, we just suppress it and we say, no, That's not true. You can do this. Suck it up. It's fine. And ladies, it is very important that we start to gently become more aware of these tendencies, to gently acknowledge when we're having these types of thoughts and feelings and mindfully recognize them and give ourselves the grace and patience to do things differently than the person next to us. This is a long process, but I wanted to at least plant that little seed in your brain today because it's important. Number 11, this is something that came up last week that I was having a discussion about with several people on the spectrum. Having a very rich inner world, inner dialogue, but being unable to express it outwardly. And there's a super funny TikTok that I feel like really relates to this that I'll put in the description for you. But many times as someone on the spectrum, we have these vivid ideas and imaginings, and we can make connections across all different kinds of topics, and we're formulating all of this stuff in our mind while someone else is talking. And then when it's actually time to talk, none of that stuff comes across. I find this happening a lot, even in my closest relationships, like with my husband. I will have something so great to say, and then when I start saying it, I'm like, well, I have no idea where that went. It was really good, and it definitely didn't come out that way. Number 12, as an autistic female, you might find that you have fewer female friends and prefer to hang out with people who are not females. You might find that you do fewer girly things than other people around you, and I realize there's so many stereotypes and generalizations happening right now. What even is girly? Let's not get into that, but stereotypical girly things, painting your nails, going shopping, wanting to get all dressed up, whatever it might be that's stereotypically girly in your neck of the woods. We won't get into how problematic those stereotypes are right now, but you get what I'm saying. You might have found that your preferences were different than other females, which brings me to number 13. As an autistic female, you might feel really different than your other female peers. Someone had a great comment, I believe it was on my community tab, about going to sleepovers and realizing that if she was going to be having a conversation with another girl, she would spend time journaling beforehand or thinking through her emotions so that she would be able to communicate about that with the other girl because she knew that that was important. So those types of things where we realize, okay, what is expected of me is different than I feel like what I can offer or want to offer or am even interested in. So maybe you have found that you just feel like you're always on the sidelines or never quite where everyone else is. You're always kind of observing from the outside and feeling like an outsider. Number 14, as an autistic female, you may have found that you tend to excel in school. This could be as a way of camouflaging. Don't create waves. Do everything the way you're supposed to. It could also be due to the fact that school is based off of usually a pretty rigid routine and structure, and that gives you some comfort and the ability to anticipate what's coming next. So you may find that you actually did really well in school because it gave you a very specific framework to work within and helped you manage day to day without creating too much attention. Number 15, as an autistic female, you might notice that you have more socially appropriate special interests than males. Special interests for people on the spectrum is something that you like spending a ton of time learning about, practicing, researching, doing, talking about. And there's a lot of stereotypes of like loving trains, being great at numbers, Rain Man, A Beautiful Mind, that kind of picture. But females might find that we have more socially appropriate special interests. Your thing might be social justice or fashion or computer programming. The list goes on, and males can also fall into this as well. But as a female, you might find that you raised fewer red flags because the things that you loved to devote all your time to didn't seem weird to other people. An asterisk on weird because I actually like being weird and I think being weird is cool, but you know what I'm saying. And then last but not least, number 16, you may have found that you are especially awkward at flirting. That's right, you may find that you have no idea how to receive flirting, how to pick up on flirting, and definitely no idea at how to actually flirt back. What does that even look like? Maybe you found yourself quoting specific movie lines that are supposed to be flirtatious in an effort to fill that gap and realizing that they don't work. Maybe you found yourself trying to flirt with a specific body movement, like putting your arm around someone, and it just doesn't go as planned or feels really, really weird. Flirting can be a very, very difficult thing to pick up on and learn as someone on the spectrum. I've heard many stories from different females where flirting was just totally bizarre and didn't make any sense. Just to reiterate, you can be autistic and maybe you don't really relate to these characteristics, or you can be autistic and relate to all of the characteristics. That's one thing that's so interesting about autism, is that it presents very differently. So please don't use this as a diagnostic tool. It's more of kind of an interesting way to connect to other people on the spectrum and learn from their experiences. Like I said, this list is comprised not only of my own experiences, but also from input from many other autistic adults that I'm learning from on my channel and in different communities that I'm a part of. So I would say to you, if you feel like you do resonate with a lot of these characteristics, the next step might be to take something like the Autism Quotient, which is a free online questionnaire that you can take that will help give you a better grid for whether or not you may be on the spectrum. There's also another diagnostic tool called the ASPE quiz that I like a lot, and I will put both of those links in the description of this video. I'll also post a link of another video that I made about the diagnostic process that I went through and what exactly that looks like. I've really been thinking lately that the most important thing is not whether or not we have a label for autism. It's about having a better framework for understanding yourself and advocating for what you need to be successful. So whether or not you have an official autism diagnosis, ADHD diagnosis, OCD diagnosis, whatever it may be, whether or not you have that, the most important thing is what information do you need to have in order to better understand yourself? And then once you have it, who cares what anybody else thinks about it, right? If it helps you show up as a more authentic version of yourself, yeah, maybe it'll create some waves and make people uncomfortable, but the most important thing is that you are happy and healthy and thriving, and that's something that we can learn how to do together as an autistic community by continuing to share our own experiences and what life on the spectrum is actually like. Now that you've made it to the end of the video, I am so excited. For those of you who have been around for a while, I've hinted at upcoming affiliations and partnerships, and I have my first ever affiliate partnership with a company called Flare. Flare has created these earbuds that I have in my ear right now, and I love them because they are so uniquely designed. So before I show you what they're like, I want you to know that I reached out to them and asked if I could represent them because I love their products so much. I want you to know that on this channel, I'm only going to share stuff with you that I actually use and love. I also want to say that I've tried many different earbuds. I really don't like things to feel cloudy or really muted to where I have to kind of listen extra hard to hear. I don't like that feeling. I don't like hearing myself chew more loudly. I don't like hearing myself talk more loudly. And so for that reason, there's a lot of earbuds that just have not worked for me. But my friend Lindsay recommended Flare to me. She was like, I promise you have to try them. They're the best, I promise. And she's right. I love them. So check out this design. So there's a hole in the bottom of the earbud. Here's the top of it. And it sits in your ear. And what it does, it doesn't necessarily make things quieter, but it reduces the frequencies so that you're not getting the really high or really low upsetting frequencies. It kind of evens everything out in the middle. When I first put them in, I thought, Lindsay, what have you suggested? This makes no difference. And she said, you have to wear them for a couple of days and you will not want to take them out of your ears. My friends, she was right. I love these babies. I keep them in my purse always. I find myself reaching for them anytime I leave the house and in the house because I have 2 children. I love them. Other reviewers have said that they just feel calmer when they wear them. And that's what these are called, Flare Calmer. So if you're interested in trying them out, I actually get a small portion of the proceeds from each purchase. So I will post my affiliate link, no big deal, in the description below. Once you click on that link, you can shop around the website and select any product that looks like a good fit for you, and it will be linked back to me. If you decide to do that, I would love to hear what your experience is like with them. I know that they have a really long trial period where you can keep them. I think it's for 100 days. I need to research that. And if it's not your thing, you just send them back, no questions asked, and you'll get your full refund. So anyways, was so excited to share that with y'all. Some of you have heard me share about it before, but now it's official. I get to rep them, and I'm going to include that link in the description below for those of you who are interested in checking it out. I hope that going through this list of characteristics has made you feel more seen. I would love to hear in the comments which characteristics you resonated with the most, and also any that you would like to add to the list, because you know I'm going to make more videos. Another thing I have coming up is a video with me and my husband where we both take the Autism Quotient assessment, discuss our answers, and compare our scores at the end. I'm pretty excited about that. That was another subscriber suggestion. And other than that, yeah, please just make sure that you've subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. That is a gift to me. It means so much. You can also support me through my PayPal at paypal.me/momonthespectrum. And also make sure that you check out the rest of my resources at momonthespectrum.net. I've got a lot of free resources on there designed to support the autistic community and make our needs and challenges a little bit more accessible. Being on the spectrum, yes, we have plenty of challenges, but I also am here to tell you that I truly believe your brain is beautiful, and together we can learn how to better appreciate our very unique minds and the innate strength and talent that we have to share with the world. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to talk with you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.